Welcome, my name is Ken Barlow, and what you're about to see is a story about helping people with mental illnesses. I know a thing or two about mental illness because I happen to have one. I happen to have bipolar disorder. A big part of helping people with a mental illness is meaningful employment. What you're about to see is a program focusing on something that's a big step in the right direction.
Very stressful, really depressed because, I couldn't provide for myself or my family.
They said, you didn't seem as happy, you seemed down a lot, which I had a lot of stress in my life, so I was.
It was frustrating at first, but I wouldn't give up. I was determined to get a job. This is the best job I ever had. I get along with the people, I got customer service, but this job right here, I ain't missed no day. If I'm sick, I come to work and let them send me home. I love coming to work, I'm happy. I get along, it's just like my second family.
Having the job gave me the confidence to know that I could pay bills. And I know that probably doesn't seem like a very fun thing to most people, but to me, to be able to cover my bills and my expenses and take care of things and feel like I'm contributing made me feel a lot better. And this job has given me a little bit more security than I had before.
Now that I'm working, I feel like a new person, This program itself helped me out, through the struggles, taught me perseverance, don't give up. Your opportunity is coming, and I stuck with it, and it happened.
I really think I reflect back to the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. With IPS, it takes a village to help individuals who have had confronted significant barriers and difficulties in their life, to get them to the point where they're able to work.
I think that it's really the trend of the way we need to look at how we look at employment services.
And the teaming approach between myself as a vocational rehab counselor, the employment specialist, and the mental health clinicians, all being on the same page and being there at the same time for the consumer.
And what IPS does really good is they just focus on the employment piece, and that makes it a whole lot different than what it used to be.
We are really just about, somebody says they want to go to work, let's get them into a job.
With IPS, you have that team support, and everybody contributes, and everybody's working towards the same goal, and everybody's supporting that person.
I like that we don't have to wait anymore.
I lost my dad in 2010. I couldn't cope. I was going through a whole lot, so I figured I went into a depression mode. I was living in Cincinnati, so I came back here, and I was in it's what you call a shelter home, whereas I'm going around looking for a job, and I got so depressed.
Robert went through some tough spots, and he seemed to always stay motivated and was always willing to get up and get moving, and I think that is a great testament to his personality and his character. There's a few opportunities that Robert had, and they seemed to fall through the cracks, and it was pretty tough for him, but he didn't give up. He's doing great now. It's quite an experience for Robert, and I can't tell you how great it is to see somebody like that be successful, because he deserves it very much so.
Josh referred me to a therapist, then we started. And I went through, I said, well, I want to go back to work. That's when he got me with Amy.
The way IPS kind of helped, I think, or way the process helped with Robert, is he was really motivated. He's out there, he was getting his applications in, changing his resumes, didn't miss appointments, and he had gotten a job offer prior to working at the Ordway and was told he couldn't have that job. And what IPS did is we were able to be in communication with him.
She helped me with whatever I needed, which is pretty good. It's looking for a job. It's kind of hard at first, but when you got people behind you that's pushing you, it works out in the end.
I began working with Robert in January of 2013. We did a lot of job searching initially. He had a several really good leads, things that we thought were going to work out.
We started off with, doing my resume. Then we started going, she was giving me leads, but it was one job I really wanted, and that was this one.
There was a job fair at Goodwill Easter Seals.
Once she told me, yeah, they having a job fair, you should go. So I went, and boom, there it was. Here I am today. And I feel so much better about myself, whereas I can reach out and try to help someone else.
Robert is doing really well in his job. He's one of our most dependable employees. He's very customer friendly. He's always seeking out patrons and helping them, and he's very dedicated to the job.
I never thought I'd be working here, and it makes me feel good.
I was just about to get a divorce, and I decided that in order to support myself and my kids, I needed to get back to work. So through the grapevine, I found out about the Workforce Center and a little bit more about HDC having an employment program. It was actually one employment specialist. She introduced me to my vocational rehab counselor, and then from there, I just decided they started giving me courage a little bit at a time to get into the job market.
The way that I helped Colleen connect with the employer for whom she now works is I heard about this particular job opening and I contacted the employer. I referred Colleen to him for an interview and he really liked her and he hired her quickly.
We heard about the job lead from Terry Dudley, and we worked with her as well as Sonia with vocational rehab to support Colleen.
With Colleen's situation was just, I think, an exemplary example of collaboration. She knew she wanted to work and she knew that she needed to work. There was a lot going on in her life.
Because she has a background in theater, I looked at her and I said, Colleen, this is a role that you're playing. And that really clicked with her.
And now that she's gotten a new job, I see a new growth of confidence, and it now also shows in her personal life, but is also on stage, I think.
I have friends that have known me in the theater for years that have said, you know, when I first met you, they said, you didn't seem as happy, you seemed down a lot. It makes me feel really proud, and it makes me feel really grateful to have found people that were able to help me.
She had the abilities and the background for what we needed as far as good character, and that's why we went with her.
The last I heard, they would like to have 100 more Colleens, and that please send folks like Colleen their way.
I was getting denied cooking jobs that I was qualified for because of my background.
He was a man who clearly was under a lot of stress due to various barriers in his life, rejections from employment in the past and not having work, and kind of questioning, how he was going to get back to working again.
We just set a plan on what I wanted to do, and I told her my passion was cooking. I was a culinary student at the Art Institute.
We really supported Antoine by, kind of being that cohesive group that would listen to what he was dealing with.
Met every 2 weeks, and just talk about how everything was going for me, and they knew my situation as far as I was offered 6 other jobs before I graduated school, and they all rescinded on me. And when I came here to the Science Museum, they gave me opportunity.
He busted down barriers that he was faced, and he persevered and made his goal become a reality.
I've been homeless, incarcerated, and I came through all that, and I feel like a new man now.
Antoine is just such a great example of how the IPS model can work.
It's never too late. Don't ever give up, and don't give up hope, because someone's always out there to help.
So now we'd love to give you more information about IPS. We have a panel that we've put together here so we can help some more folks with mental illnesses and lead them in the right direction. To my right, we're going to start with Sue Abderholden. She is the Executive Director of NAMI, Minnesota. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the lives of children and adults with mental illnesses and their families. Then we have the star of the program. That would be Rob Roy. He's from the Ordway. You just met him in the video. And he's right here. Again, he works at the Ordway very proudly, and we're very proud of him as well. Then we have Claire Courtney. She is an IPS coordinator from the Minnesota Department of Economic Development. There's Claire. And Bradley Drees, Bradley M. Drees from Goodwill Easter Seals. It's an organization also to help eliminate barriers to work and independence. So what you just saw is IPS, once again, the video about what they do, and they help folks with mental illnesses find jobs, and not just jobs, but meaningful employment so they can feel good about themselves. I know it is very, very important, again, in the treatment and recovery for those of us with a mental illness. Well, let's talk about this now. First of all, Rob, I joked with you a little while ago. How was it seeing yourself on TV? Was that kind of fun?
Oh, it's pretty good.
It was pretty good. It's kind of weird when I see myself. I'm still not used to that after all these years. You liked it, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good? That's where you're the star.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Sue, the big question is, why do we even need a program like IPS?
Well, we have so many people with mental illnesses who are not employed, and employment is actually an evidence-based practice in terms of helping people get better. And if you think about it, if you're just sitting in your apartment all day without anything to do, it'd be very difficult to get better. So getting people back to work is really important in terms of their recovery.
And some folks, it takes longer than others, obviously, to help them find some meaningful work, not just something to do, but something that they enjoy doing.
And with this model, it really is a coordinated effort between both vocational rehabilitation and mental health, so that you've got both of those folks and that whole team really working together to help that person get back to work.
And Bradley, Sue touched on it for a minute there. Tell us the importance of somebody who has a mental illness, who's dealing with day-to-day stresses like a mental illness, how much it means to them to have a good job.
It really means the world to them. As a mental health professional, one of the things I'm looking for is a person who wants to get back in the swing of life, to kind of get that stability in their life. So it is, in my opinion, utmost importance, especially when you're talking about relapse rates with people who are recovering from mental illness. It's huge.
Well, tell us about that relapse rate. So somebody who has a steady job, less likely, am I using that correctly?
Yep, absolutely. So I do therapy, and when people are kind of finished, they're feeling a little bit better. They really need, again, that stability to kind of keep things going, basically. So if they're able to go to a job each day, there's some accountability there. They're talking with people. It's stopping them from kind of falling back as they were before. So to me, again, mental health professional, I want to make sure that people are connected that way before they all of a sudden stop a therapy.
In many ways, just as good as a pill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that. Yep. Okay, now Claire, tell us a little bit about how IPS works. We just saw a little bit in the video, but can you just expand on that a little bit?
IPS is different than other kinds of employment programs because typically an employment program is separate from a mental health treatment program. In IPS, we bring those together. We take employment, we put it on a mental health treatment team so that that employment specialist can work directly with people referred by that mental health team. And that employment specialist can provide as little or as much support as the individual needs and wants to help them find a job that they're interested in. That can be deciding what kind of job to look for. It can be contacting employers on behalf of that individual or helping the individual to decide where to go to apply for jobs. The employment specialist helps with starting the job, getting stabilized on the job, keeping the job, leaving the job if needed, and finding another job when appropriate.
So that is key, that the person who is recommending the person who happens to have a mental illness to a job knows that person. They're not just throwing somebody out.
No, it's really important that we match the job with the person's interests and preferences, and the research shows that people keep jobs longer when they're interested in and they're focused on what it is that they want to be able to do.
Okay, Rob, now you were very honest and forthcoming in the video, so thank you for that, first of all. What does it mean to you to have a job. You mentioned it a little bit in the video. Did you want to talk about that a little bit, how you got together with Goodwill Easter Seals?
Well, I started at 1919 University. I was going to therapy group, and I had an arms worker. So they laid them off. So she gave me a referral to Goodwill Easter Seal. So I hooked up with Josh McGrath, my arms worker, and then he hooked me up with a therapist. So, and then she hooked me up with Amy.
Mm-hmm.
So after all that, then I got a job specialist, counselor, and we went from there.
And you got a job.
Oh yeah.
And you got the job that you love.
And furthermore, like she said, that a job I couldn't get because of my background. Now I don't have to worry about that anymore because it's all cleared up.
And Bradley, tell us how Goodwill Easter Seals works with IPS. How does that go together, and when do you recommend somebody?
Sure, when I'm working with somebody, again, what I'm listening for is their desire to get back into the swing of life as they're looking for stability. The thing I like about IPS is the second they start talking about employment, I can immediately refer them. And not only do I just refer them to IPS, but then I'm able to communicate both with the client, the person I'm working with, and their employment support specialist as well. And so I basically got a team of 3 people just right off the bat, all working towards a common goal of helping the person get employed.
And you do.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So Rob, tell us that was shot. The video is done in the summertime. Now it's getting into the fall. How is everything going? Everything's still what you had hoped for?
Pretty good.
Everything's good?
Pretty good.
So life is good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I done since then I done been promoted. You know.
Well, there you go.
You know.
And you are doing a good job.
Oh yeah.
Very nice. And Bradley, tell us one more time about not only what it means for somebody who has a mental illness, but also what it means for them to have some kind of an employment background or something to look forward to.
Yep, absolutely. Again, with mental illness, sometimes it is a product of people's environment. You can either make things worse or make things better. So if you figure, if somebody is really stuck without much support, much accountability, things to look forward to, it doesn't take much sometimes for some of those issues to come back again. So with employment, again, it gets people out. It gives them a sense of purpose, which is very, very important. And again, it's as far as relapse, it helps people not have to come and see me again.
Perfect. And that's the best thing of all, right? And Claire, tell us, is IPS statewide?
We started IPS in Minnesota in 2006, and we've got worked up to 28 projects in 47 of Minnesota's 87 counties. We haven't yet been able to expand statewide, but certainly our goal is to have IPS available to anyone, irrespective of where they're living in Minnesota.
Okay, well, why haven't you been able to expand statewide? What are some of the barriers you may be encountering? What's the deal with that?
There's always the issue of funding not necessarily keeping up with the demand, especially as we develop a successful service. IPS also asks mental health programs and employment programs to do things differently, and there haven't been very strong incentives for programs to come together and work collaboratively to have this integrated service system. So those are things we need to continue to pursue if we're going to sustain and expand IPS statewide.
So Claire, how can somebody get involved with IPS?
Well, as we said earlier, it's not quite available yet statewide. So if somebody's interested, they need to be referred by a mental health professional or a mental health team that they're receiving services from. So if somebody's interested, they should talk to their mental health professional and ask them if they can get connected with employment services. We have 28 separate geographically distinct projects in Minnesota yet, but we don't quite have state coverage. So we have partnerships between mental health agencies and employment programs like Goodwill Easter Seals, but those partnerships are only in 47 counties at this time.
Yeah, because we mentioned Bradley being with Goodwill Easter Seals, but there are multi-organizations involved with the IPS.
Yes.
I would also mention that because IPS is getting known, it's building up steam, some mental professionals may not quite know about it yet, so it is probably just best to ask and to see where you can be referred.
And then we certainly hope over the next couple of legislative sessions that more funding is made available so we can in fact meet the need. Because again, we have lots of people with mental illnesses, including serious mental illnesses, who want a job badly, and they need that support in order to be employed.
What are some of the obstacles, some of the problems that people with a mental illness face, not just getting a job, but also just a day-to-day kind of a thing?
Well, poverty and discrimination kind of go hand in hand. So if you're living on, supplemental security income of $600 some a month, you're living in abject poverty. So getting a job actually can bring you out of poverty, which is a good thing. The other thing we find is that because of hospitalizations and needing treatment and things like that, someone's resume might have a lot of holes in it, and how do you explain that to someone? We've also found that very few employers understand what accommodations are for someone with a mental illness, so people really can face a lot of discrimination on the job. So the nice part about IPS is it really brings that together so that you can explain to an employer. An employer might be more likely to hire someone because they know they have support if they need it and if the person needs it. And the really nice thing about this is a lot of employment programs, they just kind of, once they get someone a job, they walk away. IPS doesn't walk away because, as you know, the symptoms can come back 6 months, 8 months, a year later. And so that program is really, in some ways, always there for that person to keep them employed.
And you're not just NAMI Twin Cities, you're NAMI Minnesota. And you've been around the state and you've heard stories from communities. Tell us some of the stories you've heard and some of the obstacles people trying to overcome, because we know that S word, stigma, is such a huge thing. Can you relate a couple of stories about that?
Well, what we see is pretty much everywhere we go, I have yet to meet an adult with a serious mental illness who didn't want to work. So there's this, kind of rumor out there that people don't want to work, and they do, but they need the help in order to get that to happen. They need someone to maybe work with their therapist to say, I need medications at a different time of day because the job I want, I need to get up early. They might, the employer might find out that they've been committed at some time and so decide, oh no, we're too scared to hire that person. And so they're able to work through that and say, no, this person is doing well now and they'll do even better if they have a job. We find when we ask people kind of what they're looking for in life, a job, a home, and friends. And those are the three top things. And I think that what we know from our own jobs is that we make friends at work. And so that can be, again, an important part in terms of supporting someone in their recovery. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it goes on and on, right on down the road, that we're talking about the stigma, trying to overcome the stigma. And we're talking about it a little bit more these days. How do you think it's looking generally? I mean, there's still that stigma out there, but what do you think?
I think that we've made some huge progress. Even in the last 10 years, we do have more people talking about it, including someone like you, which really helps open up that door. We certainly have the legislature talking about it more in terms of we need to actually address the needs in our community. And I think that's kind of the other piece of this is people need access to treatment in order to get a job and to keep their job. And so we need to keep building our mental health system, but we are definitely making progress.
Okay, I'm going to go around to each one of you now, and I want you to give us one or two things about mental illness or treatment of mental illness that you'd like to add that I haven't touched on, which is very plausible and likely. Bradley, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'd like to say just with the IPS model specifically, the client is actually in the driver's seat. Makes it a lot easier. They're the ones who are making the decisions. I just see myself as kind of guiding them. And I think, again, that kind of makes it theirs. It's their job. It's not somebody, making them find one or anything. This is something that they want to do. It makes my job much easier.
Okay, Claire?
IPS is the most efficient and effective way to help people with significant mental illnesses achieve employment as part of their recovery. And I believe that every Minnesotan who has a significant mental illness should have the right and the ability to pursue work and have work as part of their life.
All right, now the star of the show there, Rob. Did you want to say anything or add anything to the discussion about mental illness?
Well, I look at it. IPS, it works if you work it. You can't let it work you. You have to work it. And you have to have that motivation to keep going. Don't let the mental illness stop you. If it's something you want, you got to go get it. And that was something I wanted. And I didn't let I didn't stop taking my medicine, and I just kept going. And here I am, once again.
Perfect example of that. Yeah, exactly. So before we get to what you want to say, I would like people to know that having a mental illness isn't something you decide to do. It's not something you can say, I don't think I'll be depressed today. You can't help it. It's something that happens chemically in your brain. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe about what people's misunderstandings are?
Well, there is a biological basis to mental illness. We're learning more and more as we learn more about the brain. So this isn't about willful behavior. This isn't something that you can just get over. People actually need treatment and supports in order to get better. And I just wanted to say that everyone brings something to the table. And if we don't help people with mental illnesses get jobs, be employed in the community, we're losing out on many gifts and talents in our state.
So this IPS thing is a really good thing. So how is it, I know I'm going to go a little bit here. Claire, tell us, since you brought that up, how is IPS standing right now as of today? How is the structure, how is the future looking for IPS?
I think that we have 2 state agencies that are committed to moving IPS forward. We have the support of advocacy groups like NAMI Minnesota, and we have the individuals who are receiving services as well as our providers who really believe this approach is worth continuing to fund. So we have a very strong community all working together right now to try to expand this statewide.
And Rob mentioned staying on his medication. Medication is something a lot of people can't afford or can't access. Is there any kind of input with that as far as that's concerned with any agency? I know that's a lot of problem for a lot of people.
Well, I think Minnesota now has a very low uninsured rate, which really helps a lot. Medicaid expansion has made it possible for people, not to have to spend down, but they can work, above the poverty line, and Minnesota Care provides access to good medications as well. So it's not as bad as it used to be.
Thank goodness.
Yes. So there are some good aspects in terms of our healthcare exchange and our Medicaid.
And that's exactly what I wanted to get at, because things are better medication-wise. Now we have IPS stepping up, and with the Easter Seal, Goodwill Easter Seals stepping up and really providing the other part of the structure that people like Rob, like people like me, and some of you out there need. You have to have some structure, and you have to have some kind of reason to get up in the morning.
Absolutely.
I would say. Well, we want to wrap it up here, but again, I want to thank you all very much. Is there anything else I haven't touched on? Have I kind of talked a lot here?
No, I think, again, I think all of us in our own way have made the point that employment is important and that IPS is a really great program in order to help people with the most serious mental illnesses be employed.
Okay, so we're going to give folks more information. If you would like more information about IPS, first of all, I have to thank Rob for being so frank with his story and out front with it. We really appreciate that. But if you want more information, you can go to the website on your screen. And IPS, again, is a great program doing some great stuff.